Welcome back to the channel, Gassy people. I hope you're having a great day, night, evening, wherever you are in this world, on this plane of existence. I hope you're having a great one of it. Today, we are talking about something a little spooky. You know, a little spooky. It's past Halloween. I know, don't crucify me. But still, I've been planning this video for a while, just now getting around to it. Had to re-record it a couple times, so that's why it's coming out now. To add to the atmosphere, I have thunderstorm sounds going in the background, and I have this one ambient light that's adding soft light to the room. And, we have the sunlight coming through the closed curtains that are not blackout curtains to add, to mix it up a little bit. Because, when you're working on no budget, when you're working with just your phone, limited light sources, you gotta work with what you got. I'm going for a very ambient, soft, cozy type of feel and vibe to my videos, so I hope you enjoy that. But like I said, we're talking about something spooky and, dare I say, goofy. Lukewarm coffee. You gotta love it. Anyway, we're talking about something goofy and spooky. Yes, that's right, we're talking about everyone's favorite cartoon character in existence. And no, it's not him. And no, it's not him either. And it's definitely not that bitch. No. No, not that guy. No, I'm talking about the one and only Great Dane, Mr. Scooby-Doo himself.
I got a call for a Mr. Doo.
Melvin Doo?
Nah, Scooby.
Now, I personally have been in the Scooby-Doo fandom, or what I would consider the Scooby-Doo fandom, since I was born, pretty much. I was in the womb. I grew up out in the womb and outside of the womb, watching and listening to Scooby-Doo. That was one of my favorite cartoons growing up. I have a semi-decent collection that I've accumulated over the years from my mom's money over the years. Every time we would go to Walmart or the store and I would see a Scooby-Doo DVD, I'd be like, Mom, we have to get it, I need it. Even if I had no interest in whatever, if it was like one of the WrestleMania Scooby-Doo videos. I don't like wrestling, but I would still make my mom get it because, only child things, and who else is she gonna spend her money on? Me, that's right. But yeah, I have been in the Scooby-Doo fandom since the year 2000, since I was born. And I've been involved as much as one can be involved when it's been going on since the 60s. So yeah, I might not be involved in those online forums or in the Reddit discussion threads or anything like that, but in my heart, mind, and soul and existence, I'm in the Scooby-Doo fandom. Now, I know talking about Scooby-Doo isn't necessarily a new topic by any means, especially here on YouTube. There are several YouTubers who have done videos on Scooby-Doo or just Scooby-Doo movies and media as a whole. Some of my favorites include Drew Gooden's, NerdSync, Gabby Bell, Billiam, and of course my all-time, my chef's kiss all-time favorite Scooby-Doo channel ever, Scooby-Topia. I'm serious when I say Scooby-Topia is one of the best Scooby-Doo channels out there. I genuinely mean it. I love his content so much, and you should really check it out. And he also, by the way, has the same opinion as me on the most terrifying Scooby-Doo villain / monster in the entire franchise. And this is it.
Hello? Hello?
Fucking terrifying. Yeah, even as an adult. To child me, it was insanely terrifying. As an adult, still creeps me out. What a freak that thing is. Anyway, I highly recommend you go check out Scooby-Topia's channel and all of the other content creators I listed in this video if you haven't already seen them. They're really great. They make amazing content, especially Scooby-Topia. Love him down. Love you, man. Shout out Scooby-Topia. And maybe comment down below if you also hold the same opinion as me and Scooby-Topia on the creepiest Scooby-Doo villain out there. But what I want to talk about specifically today is what made the Scooby-Doo Where Are You pilot so unique and influential for its time, and what it did, in my very honest and humble opinion, to establish an iconic placeholder for itself and for the franchise as a whole for the decades to come after its initial release. But first we have to talk about what exactly makes a perfect pilot episode. Is it gripping dialogue? Is it an intriguing premise? Is it striking film technique, or is it an ensemble cast of characters that grip you from the get-go? Or perhaps maybe it's a mix of all of these things together to accumulate into one perfect little wrapped package of an amazing pilot. To be frank with you, I don't know. I'm not a scriptwriter. I don't make films. I don't make that type of television media, animation, anything like that. So I'm not an authority figure on what makes something good objectively and what objectively makes something bad. I just know personally as a audience member what I see people tend to like and what I personally like, what I see people tend to not like and what I personally don't like. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I might just be talking out my ass on this, and that's okay. If you think I am just completely off topic and off the ball with this one, you can comment that down below, and we can get a dialogue going. We can get a discussion going, if you will, about perfect pilot episode criteria. But before we get into the meat and bones of the actual Scooby-Doo content, I just want to preface this with a warning. There will be spoilers. Hate to say it, there's going to be spoilers about the pilot episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You that aired in the 60s. So if you haven't seen it in the something 50 plus years it's been out, that's kind of on you, but you should go ahead and go watch it and then come back to this video, and then you can dissect and we can get that dialogue going again in the comments on what you agree and disagree with me on. Sound like a plan? Go ahead and do that. I'll give you time. I'll sit and wait for you to do that. Go ahead. We'll hang out. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit of the background history related to Scooby-Doo Where Are You, just in case if there are people who don't know what the show is or what it's about or how it came to be. You know, we got to touch on it. This is an educational channel. We got to talk about history a little bit. We got to add background information for everyone to understand. And so we're all on the same page before getting into the real heart of the episode. So I used this website called Cartoon Research to do my initial run through of the history behind Scooby-Doo, and I just kind of became fascinated with the article and the man who wrote the article, Jim Korkis, and there's going to be more on him in a minute because there's a lot to get into with him. So yeah, I basically took all my information from this article. There are other websites and articles and other, things to corroborate all of this. But I specifically liked this one by Jim Korkis, so that's the one we're using. The idea for Scooby-Doo came from writers Joe Ruby and Ken Spears of Hanna-Barbera. They saw the success of the Archie show that was airing at the time. They came up with their own show idea with the theme of teenagers solving supernatural mysteries together. It was originally created as Mysteries 5, and the show is going to be about a teenage rock band with their bongo playing dog, and when they weren't off performing gigs or, I don't know, at school, I guess, because they're teenagers, they'd be solving mysteries together across the country, as all teenagers do, of course. We all did that as teenagers, right? The team pitched the idea, and they filled it with haunted houses, scares, and spooks and creeps aplenty, and the final conclusion by the CBS Network's president, Frank Stanton, afterwards was, holy shit, we can't show this insanely scary bongo playing dog and human rock band duo to children. Are you fucking insane right now? Ultimately, after tweaking and editing some of their original ideas and content and things, they landed on their final rendition of 4 teenagers, going by the name of Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and their comedic scaredy cat dog, Scooby-Doo. So with the haunted houses and the scary aspects of the show kind of put to the background and the comedic hilarity of Scooby-Doo put at the helm of the ship, the show finally aired in the fall of 1969. So you know how I was talking about Jim Korkis, the author of the article at the beginning of this section? Well, when I finished reading the article, I decided to read more about the author, Jim, because they had like a little about section on the side, and I'm going through and I'm like, damn, this guy's got quite the resume. He had a dedication to cartoons and journalism in general, but this guy's pretty impressive. And then I panned down just one little inch below the about section and saw this. So yeah, that was a bit of a bummer, guys. But I just wanted to read his last words because they were so sweet and very impactful. So Jim's last words were, "There are so many books I want to read or reread, so many movies and television shows I wanted to see or re-see, and many more food treats I wanted to enjoy, like C's chocolates." No idea what that is. "I know God loves me and this is part of his plan. Be happy and kind to each other. When you think of me, I hope you smile. I loved you all and appreciated your generosity, support, and hope." Jeez Louise, Jim, rip my damn heart out. Rip that shit out, why don't you? Holy fuck. But anyway, I'm dedicating this video to Jim because he seemed like he was a genuine enjoyer of Scooby-Doo and a lover of the content and a lover of the game of researching about cartoons and writing about them on this website, Cartoon Research, you know? Rest in peace, bud. You know, seemed like a real one. Editing brain here to add some things that I failed to mention in the initial recording of this video. So Jim Korkis was actually a known animation historian who lived in California for a long time and worked on a bunch of cartoon journals and animation journals and magazines and things like that. And he was a really well-known cartoon historian and animation historian. I did not realize that at the time of the recording. And he actually, when he lived in California, he was also heavily involved in theater and directed over 100 stage performances. But he eventually moved back to Florida to take care of his ailing parents, and he ended up still working with Disney while he was there. But he worked as like a lot. He was a performer, an animation instructor. He also was a coordinator with the Disney Learning Center and a tour guide, things like that. He was also a special consultant for the Disney Cruise Line, Disney Vacation Club, Imagineering and Animation. But, you know, even though he was a valued employee of Disney, they did lay him off in 2009. But he ended up still writing for them on their blog, on the Walt Disney Family History blog, and he has several articles still up. They also posted a brief little article snippet thing when he passed, so that is nice of them, even though they laid him off, even though he seemed like a very valued employee. But, you know, it's Disney Corporation for you. What can you do? Anyway, back to the video. Now, in the classic intro of the show, we are actually introduced to several villains and monsters that will appear in future episodes. They kind of chop them up into clips and add them to make the intro of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I'm pretty sure all of them are pulled from future episodes, maybe saved for like a few here and there that maybe just didn't make the cut and they still just use them for the intro. But, you know, I just thought that was a fun little tidbit to add. But we're not really here for the later episodes. We're here for the first episode, the pilot episode. We're here for What a Night for a Night. Am I right? I don't think I'm cut out for the comedics of doing YouTube. I think I'm just good at yapping about what I enjoy and need to leave the comedy to people like Curtis Connor and Danny Gonzalez and Drew Gooden. I'm gonna leave that to their commentary side of YouTube. They know how to do that. I don't. But also, can we take a moment to appreciate just the sweet beauty of this title card? They don't fucking do art like that anymore in cartoons. Maybe they do, and, you know, we have things like, you know, The Amazing Spider-Verse and Arcane, things like that, but like for young children specifically, or the younger audiences, the TV Y7 audience, they're not doing that shit. We got, like, I don't know, Cocomelon and the Dancing Fruits on YouTube. You know, they're not getting this high quality art, you know? But I digress. That's neither here nor there. You can make an entire video about that some other day. After the intro, the episode opens with this eerie music and this darkly lit road, and out in the distance, and, you know, we're in the middle of Timbuktu nowhere. It looks like we don't really know where we are. Kind of dimly lit forest kind of thing. You see where you are there, but you see this truck is driving towards the audience in the distance. And you're like, what is this truck doing in the middle of nowhere? Oh my god. And then you see in the back, there's actually this box. The crate cracks open, and this full suit of armor just kind of plops out, and I don't know how the driver doesn't hear him clanking around, because obviously it's a metal truck bed, but he pops out and he's mean mugging the driver through the back window with these beady little eyes, and he genuinely almost looks like he's about to pull a fucking gun on it. I swear to God, it looks like he's about to pull a weapon and brutalize this man. But no, there's no gun. This guy's just really great at looking creepily with his beady little yellow eyes through the back window of this truck, while also simultaneously not making any noise whatsoever to be perceived at all. Which, like, I know that's a very trivial thing to focus on, but, like, genuinely, how the fuck does this adult driver not see in his rearview mirror this, like, shining black armor glimmering in the brightest moon fucking imaginable? That moon is shining bright, casting light on a glow on everything. And you're telling me the driver can't see the shining armor? He can't hear it clanking around back there? Okay. So maybe the driver's just a little dumb, a little oblivious. He's just in his own fucking world that he doesn't have peripheral vision, He's not even looking in the rearview mirror. He can't process anything, I guess. Either way, couldn't be me. I am aware of my surroundings at all times, because I'm perfect like that, you know? But anyway, immediately with that scene, we are introduced to what we as the audience can assume is the monster or villain of the episode, as indicated by that beautifully well-drawn title card that we were talking about earlier, and also evident by the way the Black Knight armor is like staring intently into the back seat at the driver. So already with this minute-long introduction, we have established intrigue, and that's one of the things I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Don't know if you remember that from like 2 minutes ago, but that was one of the things I mentioned. But it's to keep us, the audience, and you know, the other children who are also watching Scooby-Doo, entertained. It's quick and it's effective to keep your attention on what is going on. But no one cares about the monster. We're here for Scooby-Doo. Where's the star of the show? Where's Scooby? Oh my god, that's Scooby-Doo. That's who we're here for. We're here for Scooby. By the way, Scooby and Shaggy, it cuts to this next scene and Scooby and Shaggy are walking in the middle of the woods, which Shaggy is a teenager, mind you. But they're just walking alone in the middle of the woods at midnight. It's really dark out, you know, no one else is around. They're in the forest, casually walking home from the movie theaters as if it's no big deal. I, as an audience member in 2025, am not supposed to be concerned that they're doing all of this by themselves. I'm not supposed to be concerned that a teenager is walking home alone in the woods at the middle of the night after seeing a movie. I'm not supposed to be concerned for his safety or the dogs. All right. Actually, the lesson of this video is that Scooby-Doo is actually a commentary for absentee parents who leave their children alone to kind of fend for themselves in the horrors of the adult world that they experience. Don't know if you guys were expecting that little twist, but that actually is at the heart of Scooby-Doo what the entire franchise is about. So, food for thought. Think about that a little bit. So Scooby and Shaggy hear this noise off in the bushes, and they're really reluctant to see what it is. But of course, Scooby-Doo, being a dog, he's like all on it. He's like, I gotta hunt it. They like investigate, and they see that it's actually just this adorably drawn little bullfrog or little frog. It's the cutest thing in the world. Scooby does what any dog does and chases it into the woods, you know, as they do, and they end up coming across that truck that was at the beginning of the intro of the episode. They come across the truck and it's just stalled in the middle of the woods. No one around. Turns out the driver is no longer there. He's just poofed gone. But in his place is the Black Knight armor. The creep himself. The show does this really eerie shot where the armor is shrouded in darkness but is kind of clinking around on its own somehow as well, and Shaggy and Scooby, of course, immediately see that, and they're like, duh, and they run for the heavens because, you know, fuck that. Why the hell would you stay for that? And honestly, I would have just gone home. Frankly, I would not have done anything else. I would have just gone straight home. One, you would not have caught me. You would not catch me alone in the woods in the middle of the night anyway. But if I saw something like that, I would immediately be running for high heaven, and you would not see me again. I would have been snuggling up in my bed with my dog, and that would have been that. No mention of it again. But unlike what I would personally do, the two lads decide to go get their friends, you know? They decide, even though we're scaredy cats, we're gonna go get our friends and we're gonna go investigate this as a group. Which they go and get the rest of the gang, you know, Fred, Daphne, Velma. And it is kind of surprising to me because I guess the three of them were just up in the middle of the night as well and not doing anything, not like sleeping. Or, you know, they just, I guess, have the free time to also go investigate and do whatever. They just have time in the middle of the night to go investigate this random pickup truck that their friend and his scaredy cat dog just found in the middle of the woods. I guess. So, I guess they were just able to leave their homes and just go investigate this without, like, it causing some, like, stress or worry or, like, suspicion about them from anyone. But, you know, it was the 60s. Who gives a shit about kids, I guess? So the gang is all here now. They're surrounding the truck, and they are doing some hard-hitting investigation. I mean, they're asking questions. They're poking around the truck, and they're looking at labels and papers, and they're trying to figure out where this creepy hunk of tin is from. To which Shaggy responds to that statement with,
maybe he went out for the night.
Get it? You guys get it? It's kind of... Because, you know, he's a knight, he's a suit of armor, and he's like a medieval knight. It's kind of like highbrow humor if you guys really, really think about it. I don't know if you guys would have the developed minds of like higher than an elementary school child, but to be able to grasp that, don't know if you guys would be able to comprehend that one. During their investigation, they actually figure out that the owner of the suit of armor is an archaeology professor from England named Hyde White, and that the knight was actually supposed to be delivered to the local county museum, and that's what the professor was doing in the middle of the night, I guess, driving around to deliver this suit of armor. Once the gang figures out where this suit of armor is supposed to go and where it's supposed to be, they end up carting it to the museum to give it to the curator and everything. Mind you, whose owner has mysteriously disappeared. The professor is gone, and they're not really like questioning that. They're just kind of like, we'll take it back to the museum and go give it to the curator. And which the curator is this little fuddy-dud of a snivelly man who is appropriately named Mr. Wickles. They get there and they return the armor, and he's like, oh dear, oh dear. He's like wringing his hands and shit and just being like, oh dear. And he like thanks them for bringing the armor back, but he's also like, the professor poofed out of existence. I wish you wouldn't have even brought it. And Daphne, being the dumb little teenager she is, goes, well, why not, Mr. Wickles? Why would you not want us to bring the suit of armor back, whose professor has disappeared? What? Girl, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I know it's a kid's show, but come on, girl. Let's give these kids some credit. They're smarter than we put them on to be. The curator ignores the stupidity of Daphne's question and tells them the legend of the Black Knight, wherein, and this is the entire legend. This is all that is said. He just says, when the moon is full and it beams in the sky, the Black Knight arises from its eternal slumber, and in its restless state, it just kind of walks around. It just kind of walks around and sits in pickup trucks and just stares at drivers creepily from behind and with the beady little yellow eyes. And honestly, they don't say why that's like a bad thing. Hearing that just face value doesn't really give you an impression that like it's bad by any means. But I guess everyone just assumes the Black Knight is just up to nefarious dealings from the get-go. And I know I'm poking fun at it, but I think that just adds to the fun of it, to the fun of the episode and the fun of the show. Those little small details that don't really quite make sense, and they don't really add to the plot, but they do in a way. They're just fun little things to point out that happen in the episode. So now, with that being said, we have essentially set up our cast and plot. We have the defining characters, which are the gang themselves, and we know the B-side characters, the disappeared professor and Mr. Wicklepickle or whatever his name is. And we also have the mystery to be solved. What the fuck did the knight do to the professor? Is he like chained up in a dungeon or something? Is he performing medieval torture methods on him? Is he just in someone's cornfield or in the woods on someone's property? I mean, the possibilities are endless on where this guy could be. And also, I just want to point out that if this episode or this concept were in an aged up, like, television show, like something you would see on HBO or Netflix, something in the realm of, like, Stranger Things or Game of Thrones level of, like, adult content, I guess you could say, everyone would automatically assume that the professor was dead and seek revenge. Small town, someone gets killed, they might just call for a communal roasting of the night, man. You know what I mean? They'd be like,
"'Tis the devil's work."
and then they'd yeet it onto a fire pit like Dakota Fanning did to that toddler in the Twilight movie, the one where she just like, hey. So at the museum, Scooby is stalking around kind of the main area of it after the workers have taken the knight into some other room, and he notices that this great lion statue in the area has these really wonky framed glasses on them, and he's like, oh, glasses, I should take those. And they're like glowing, they're like sparkling, because if they weren't sparkling, we as the audience would not be able to tell that they were important. They add the sparkle to differentiate, so you go, oh, so your mind picks up and goes, I need to be paying attention to that. The gang leaves, and they're back in the mystery machine. They're trucking along, doing whatever. Velma is immediately like, this mystery's got me baffled. I just don't know what to think of it. And it's like, well, yeah, girl, we haven't investigated anything. We've done the bare minimum of research. We know nothing. Yeah, it'd be baffling to me, too, if I also had done little to no research on it. And of course, Shaggy doesn't give a shit about the like potentially dead / missing professor, and he does this like Ember Island players suck a bit.
Well, it's got me like hungry. When do we eat?
Shaggy's like, I'm starved. When are we gonna? I could eat right now, because that's his entire character, is just eating. And the goofus that Scooby is chimes in, and he like pops up from the back seat. And he's like, yeah, me too. I'm hungry too. And what, ladies and gentlemen, is Scooby wearing? That's right. The wonky little glasses with the weird little spectacle frame things. And then the gang are talking to each other like, where'd Scooby get those glasses? He must have found them at the museum. And it's like, hey, you know he's a talking dog, right? You've talked to him. You've spoken like human words, English words to him. It's important to me that you know that he is a talking dog. Just ask him the questions yourselves. Hey Scooby, where'd you get the glasses? And I'm sure he'd be like, Ratburger Museum, or whatever, however the fuck he talks. So they go to the library to do more research on like the Professor and the Black Knight and other things, and it's all by book, cause you know, the 60s, am I right? No internet. But it must have sucked, man, because how did anyone pass the time without amazing YouTube content like, you know, the video you're watching right now, or other various ways to inform yourself of like the news and things going on in the world at large? How did they get any other information without Facebook telling them everything they need to think and feel? So anyway, they figure out that the type of glasses that they found are ones used by jewelers, scientists, and, you guessed it, archaeologists. And they're only made in England. Guys, I don't know if you put two and two together. We know an archaeology professor from England. It's Professor Hyde White. Huh. Huh. Dots are connected. We've connected all the dots. Clue number uno to the mystery, locked and loaded. After learning this little bit of information, they decide that they're going to go after hours back to the museum to break and enter, I guess. I don't know why they would go to do that. It's gonna be closed. Lo and behold, when they get there, they're like confused that it's closed. They're like, but why would this museum full of priceless artifacts and ancient artifacts that are important to society and cultures and will never be able to get back again if something happens to them, why would they be locked behind doors after visiting hours? That's crazy. And they're like, that's honestly weird and inconveniencing to me personally as a person trying to do hard-hitting investigation as a teenager. So reconsider doing that. Obviously, they can't go in through the regular entranceway, so Fred has this genius idea that they're going to climb through a window, which I don't know how they can see the windows that are locked and unlocked, but they decide to go through this window that's at the very top of the building that's like 3 to 4 stories high, which I don't know how they can see that the window is open and not covered in glass like the rest of them. But even though it's Fred's solution, Fred's like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna let my tall little lanky friend Shaggy do it, because he's the thinnest apparently, and so they're like, he'll be able to squeeze through, right?
Why me?
Because that's a small window and you're the thinnest.
Oh boy.
But before he has Shaggy like scale the building, Fred grabs this like comically large ladder from the back of the mystery machine. Is the mystery machine like some fucking clown car? How the fuck did you fit that ladder in there? But so he like puts it against the building, and they immediately come up with an obstacle because obviously the ladder is not 4 stories or however many stories tall. Fred's next idea is to get a car jack from the mystery machine also. Mind you, when he grabs the car jack, it shows Shaggy is already perched on the ladder, like ass out, ready to go. And then it cuts to the jack suddenly being underneath the ladder. They're like cranking it, getting ready to, and like lifting Shaggy up as he goes. So he's raising the ladder with Shaggy on it. I don't know about you, but I am so intrigued by how Fred managed to do this with this 6 foot something tall, lanky teenager already sat on the ladder. Is Fred lifting the ladder with one arm and then hastily tossing the jack underneath it? Or is off screen Daphne and Velma lifting it up on either side, and Fred's like, you know, hurry, like also throwing the jack underneath it and placing it there? Is Fred tossing Shaggy and the ladder, throwing them into the air, and then throwing the jack underneath it and being like, Larry, and it just like lands solidly on the jack, no issue? We'll never know, I guess. Also, everyone say hi to Telma. She's gonna lay. She's gonna sit here with us, guys, I guess. She's gonna sit on the couch. She's like, you're actually in my spot. So after Fred, like, cranks the jack all the way up, as high as it can go, they're like, Shaggy is still out of reach of the window, but, like, barely. He can, like, he's, like, reaching up with his arms, and he's like, I can't reach. But they don't fret because Shaggy is the swingingest gymnast in school, apparently. Side note about Shaggy, in gymnastics, I guess, and we never hear about it again. So, fun little tidbit about Norville Rogers. So Shaggy swings right in there and immediately just plummets through all the floors of the museum, and it's like really loud and ruckus, and obviously he lands in a pile of rubble and with so much damage caused. And it's like, holy fuck, I see why the cops hate these fucking kids. They're absolutely demolishing public property. They're breaking and entering after hours. They're damaging ancient artifacts that probably cost millions upon millions of dollars, all to search for the mere possibility, the mere idea that they might have a clue. Damn, if you guys actually think about it, the Mystery Gang is actually the modern day influencer destroying shit in other countries for content, you know? They were the 60s equivalent of a modern day influencer. After Shaggy frees himself from the rubble of antiquity, we get another eerie panning shot of the museum. It's creepy as hell, but Shaggy's walking around the area, and I want you to take notice how he walks past this clothed figure / statue-like object. He walks around it, and he immediately says, "The Black Knight," and he gulps, obviously, because you know, that's what he does as well. And it cuts to the Black Knight armor placed in this like dark little corner. You can't really see him. Also creepy as hell. But what I think is important to notice from this scene is what I would call a misdirect. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, film enthusiasts. I know that's probably not the right terminology, but it's what I would consider to be a quote-unquote misdirect. Because when Shaggy is walking past this statue, we're made to believe it's not necessarily an important factor to think about or to consider. He walks past it quickly, and it immediately pans to the Black Knight, who up until this point has been the focal point of the episode. You know, he's the villain and he's got this creepy legend behind him. We know he is who we are supposed to be focusing on. But it's similar to how in other environments where the gang walks past something, say in the background, and you don't really take notice of it. It's not really, there's not an emphasis put on it. So we're made to believe that we should not be caring about this statue object. But one difference to note compared to other environment scenes where the gang is walking around versus this one specifically is that even though this statue is behind him, it does not blend seamlessly into the background artwork. It's drawn in the same style as Shaggy and the other characters, or the Black Knight even, where you were supposed to take notice of it. They're kind of like popped to the foreground and animated. They're animated in a slightly different style, so you notice them more. So compare that to the background panning shot we saw beforehand, where the artwork is kind of stagnant and it's essentially concept art. So nothing really is like popping out compared to when you have a character, a main character in the scene. There you can see that they're kind of drawn in a more animated style. So when a character or something that the audience is supposed to notice in one of these scenes, in what we're supposed to take note of, it's drawn in a more mobile, direct, and clear way, allowing for it to stand out for us to take notice and capture it. It's just a little inkling in our brain where we're like, hey, I see that, I recognize that, and I acknowledge that it's there. And I will keep it in the back of my mind going forward, even if you don't necessarily realize it. They animate it in such a way that it allows that object and that character to stand out from the muted background of the scene it's in. So then, when Shaggy walks away from the Black Knight and back the way he came from, we're zoomed in on the statue immediately afterwards. And it for sure is making it known that we as the audience, we need to be paying attention to that. Why is unclear at this point in time. However, we need to keep that in the back of our mind, along with the Black Knight. And also, its eyes blink, so that's clear indicator as well, once again, that we need to be keeping an eye on it. That's adding another layer of mystery to our overall plot that we have going on. And then in that scene also, Shaggy, you know, taps on the armor and he's like, oh, sure glad it's empty. So it makes you think, if the legend is true, why would he be commenting about the armor being empty? Is someone supposed to be in that armor? Does that mean that with the eyes blinking in the clothed figure that someone is in that statue, someone's hiding underneath it? Once again, another layer of mystery is added to the show by making you think that there now are two possibilities for some sort of villain or some sort of multiple altercations to happen besides just the Black Knight. So by that scene alone, we are getting what I would consider to be, or to fall under the umbrella of, striking film technique. The reason is the show is subverting your expectation and subtly adding things from the background into the foreground, progressing them into the foreground for you to take notice of and be aware of. Now, I'm sure this was also common for the period of the time with cartoons in general, just to make things stand out and for, you know, you to for children to grasp it, but I still think it's an interesting little tidbit that they do. But once the rest of the gang are inside the museum, they split into teams with Daphne and Fred in one sector and Velma and Shaggy in another, and they have Scooby on the door for some reason. Though it takes some coaxing to get Scooby to do, the guarding task. They're like, you're the guard dog, you do it. And he's like, well, I don't wanna. That's where we're introduced to an item and a resulting act that will become a staple for the franchise to come, for the decades to come after it, and within the Scooby-Doo cartoons in general. It'll become a common culture thing that people are aware of immediately, and they know where it's from if you say it. And that's right, I'm talking about the Scooby Snack. And it gives Scooby that burst of confidence he needs to be the best guard dog he can, and he takes his duties so seriously. He's stalking back and forth, and he's moving, and he's being all guard dog like, taking it very seriously. Until he sees his own shadow, and then he immediately books it for Velma and Shaggy. So now the teams are split back into Fred and Daphne in one, and now it's Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, because his guard dog days did not last very long. So both teams are looking throughout the museum for clues. They're doing their own thing. Shaggy somehow gets lost immediately. I don't know how he does that, but he does it. And then Daphne and Fred are in one portion of the museum, and they're just kind of off to the side, like kind of looking around confused at this wall, like they don't really know where they're at, which is kind of a common theme in this episode. You see characters doing that a lot. Don't know why, they just do. They're just very oblivious to their surroundings. But as they're doing that, they miss a hand behind them. There's like a sarcophagus behind them, and they miss the door opening and a hand kind of like peeping out there or poking out. They miss the hand sliding back in and the coffin closing because they're too busy staring at the wall to notice anything in their peripheral vision, or to, I guess, hear anything going on in the room as well, in this dead silent museum that has no noise besides the shuffling of their own feet. But then off in this other area of the museum, while Velma and Scooby are walking around doing their thing, the Black Knight awakens. He is up from his slumber and he starts following them and, stalking them like a creep. But I want to point out this is also another example of characters and items being in the foreground for you to focus on. Once again, that the Black Knight is drawn in a completely different style to where when he's just standing stationary in the background, you can see that they're more animated and clear lines drawn and everything versus being more muted, blending into the background. So anyway, Scooby's freaking out because he immediately clocks the Black Knight behind him. And Velma, like all the humans in this show, are oblivious to the monster following them. So Scooby is like freaking out, panicking, and he knocks Velma's glasses off like a dunce. She falls face first and she's like, my glasses, and the knight trips over her, like just tumbles over her and falls into this like stockyard thing that they used to do back in the day to like publicly shame you or whatever. I don't remember what it's called, but they used to throw tomatoes at you and boo you. But it doesn't really matter what it's called because Velma thinks with her glasses off that this is Shaggy for some reason and that he's just kind of goofing around right now. So I guess in the Scooby-Doo universe, if a person loses their glasses or they fall off their face, they go completely blind and they can't tell. They can't differentiate between shapes and colors and noise as well. They can't tell their friend's voice from a suit of armor. And I say this because the Black Knight, this is what he sounds like. Yeah, Velma, that for sure is Shaggy right there. 100%. That is your friend right there. So the Black Knight terrorizes them throughout the museum. They break some more ancient memorabilia, and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in property damage, that's all they can do in this museum is just break things. But the gang ends up regrouping. They find each other again, and they're like, talking about what they found, and Shaggy ends up finding this missing painting from one of the walls. And so he thinks it's a clue. So he's like, oh, I gotta go tell the others. But when he gets the rest of the gang to finally come and look at this painting, this missing painting from the wall, it's no longer missing. It's there now. And they're like, Shaggy, this isn't a clue. The painting's still there. And he's like, well, I don't know what happened. It wasn't there a minute ago. And that's when Daphne sees below them. She sees what she thinks is blood. But in reality, it's a trail of paint. And it trails back to the sarcophagus that Daphne and Fred were like ignoring before, that they'd had no idea was like moving or anything. It trails back to there, and they open the sarcophagus to reveal a hidden room behind it. So they discover this hidden room behind the sarcophagus, and it's like filled to the brim with a shitload of paintings and like paint all over. It's just a mess in there. And that's when they find Clue Dos. Clue 2, counterfeit paintings. They find counterfeit paintings being made of very expensive valuable museum paintings. However, their sleuthing is short-lived when all of a sudden the Black Knight appears and he's like, ah, and he does this. So hilarity ensues while they're trying to capture the Black Knight. You know, Shaggy and Scooby cause more property damage. You know, I'm surprised the building is still fucking standing after Shaggy piled through 4 floors and caused all this rubble destruction. But I guess it's all worthwhile because they end up capturing the Black Knight ghost and they reveal who it is. And it ends up being the dork of a man, Mr. Wickles. And he's looking goofy as ever. So the explanation as to why Wickle Pickle was doing all of this is that he and his lads were taking these expensive paintings from the museum and taking them into that back room, making counterfeit copies of them, and they were going to sell them for a high dollar. And then they used the Black Knight ghost to kind of keep people out of the museum as they were working on them so that people didn't discover that they were there after hours doing all of this shit. And they also used the Black Knight to get rid of Professor Hyde White because they knew that he would be the only one to recognize if they were counterfeits or not. So they were like, we gotta fucking kill this bitch. And that's when they all realized, oh my god, where the fuck is the professor at? We haven't looked for him this entire time. We've just been so focused on destroying the museum and all of the artifacts in there that we just didn't even focus on the possibly dead missing professor. But Scooby, the handy little guy he is, he finds the shoe and reveals that Professor Hyde White was actually the guy in the statue, the clothed statue figure all along. That was him. They find him all gagged and bound up, which this whole thing is fucking insane. Not only is Mr. Wickles going to be charged for counterfeiting prized paintings, but also probably charged with aggravated adult kidnapping, torture, and potential premeditated murder. He had Hyde standing at this statue, gagged and bound for days on end, with probably no food or water. Like, was he just going to leave Hyde there to die, gagged and bound, so he could go doodle in the back museum room, in the back of the museum? Holy fuck, Mr. Wickles, you absolute sick bastard. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. Mr. Wickles goes to prison and gets his ass beat, and Scooby gets another gaggle of laughs in. But to come full circle, and you know, all jokes aside and all the little nitpicky tidbits I threw in there just for comedy and to, you know, lighten it up a bit. For all intents and purposes, I think this is an extremely well done pilot episode for both a cartoon and a show in general. It hits all the marks to me in terms of dialogue, intrigue, mystery, the different personalities of the characters. It's such a great plot line, multiple plot lines if you think about it. Some jokes that can be viewed, you know, at any age, but whether you're a child or an adult, even the plot and show in general can be something that anyone of all ages can watch and get a laugh and get some entertainment out of. And I think it's a cartoon that in today's day and age doesn't really get talked about enough. It doesn't get talked about enough in mainstream networks for how influential it has been for over 50 years. Because if you really think about it, it's crazy that they were able to take these characters that were designed specifically for the 60s, the late 60s, early 70s, and they've been able to mold and adapt those characters for each generation that has come after it. They are still making movies today with the Scooby-Doo franchise. I just think that is a sign of such a well-done show and cast of characters and media that you were able to adapt them to any time period, any generation, and make them still enjoyable for all audiences to view and see. That just shows to me that Scooby-Doo's lasting impact and iconic reputation that it's had over the past decades. But anyway, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, if you stuck around this far and listened to me ramble and, you know, nitpick the hell out of this, thank you for sticking around, and thank you if you enjoyed it. Please comment down below what you enjoyed, or, you know, comment what you didn't enjoy, and we can workshop something and I can make content you do enjoy. And, you know, also do me a favor and please like and subscribe. Like this video. You know, you maybe don't have to just subscribe, but, you know, like the video anyway if you enjoyed it. If not, please don't dislike. I will cry if you do. But please, 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 for the love of God, if you comment anything, please just comment down below if you too think that this is the creepiest son of a bitch villain in Scooby-Doo history of all time. I think he has no contenders. I think there's no contest about who the creepiest son of a bitch is. I digress. Until next time, stay gassy, everyone. Bye.